Lisa, have you got your... No, a ver, póngale la...
No, ella... El micrófono.
Okay, I will give you this one.
Gracias.
Okay.
¿Le bajamos esto?
Aquí está, perfecto. Muy buenas tardes. Muchas gracias por acompañarnos el día de hoy. Nos da mucho gusto darles la bienvenida a la sesión de trabajo sobre el tema de gobierno e instituciones confiables. Para poder responder la pregunta de qué hace que una sociedad sea gobernable de manera exitosa, o si uno prefiere frasearlo de otra manera, qué hace que el contrato social funcione, tenemos necesariamente que transitar o que pasar a través del tema de la confianza en el gobierno y en las instituciones. Entre los muy variados temas que hay que resolver en relación a esta pregunta, puedo mencionar algunos nada más ilustrativamente. Primero está el asunto de las definiciones. ¿Qué es gobernanza? ¿Qué es una gobernanza exitosa? ¿Qué es confianza? Y muchas más seguramente que encontrarán ustedes. El asunto de a qué podemos aspirar, cuál es la calidad de la confianza, cuál es la calidad del desempeño que se puede esperar de un gobierno y cuál es la que será aceptable. ¿Puede la confianza ser impuesta? ¿Puede la confianza ser una cuestión solo de marketing? ¿Puede la confianza ser fingida? Un tercer asunto que habría que resolver es cómo medirla, cómo medir todos estos temas, cuáles deberían ser los indicadores, cuál es el contenido de estos indicadores y finalmente, ¿por quién? ¿A quién le corresponde medir estos temas? Como he dicho, estas son solo unas cuantas de las posibles preguntas cuando tratamos este tema. Y para hacer una reflexión sobre este y otros temas relacionados, tenemos el día de hoy un panel muy distinguido de expertos con experiencia tanto en el análisis de la teoría como en la práctica de la gobernanza. De esta forma doy la bienvenida a Marta Lagos, a Lisa Versales y a Juan Pardinas. Desafortunadamente, Elena Panfilova, de Transparencia Internacional, que nos iba a acompañar y ya estaba en México, de hecho, el día de ayer, desafortunadamente tuvo que regresar a su país para atender un asunto familiar. Le mandamos nuestros mejores deseos. Los tiempos aproximados serán entre 15 y 20 minutos por cada presentación y al final abriremos para preguntas y respuestas. Nuestro primer presentador será Marta Lagos. Marta es la directora fundadora de la Corporación Latinobarómetro, encuestadora de profesión. Ha realizado encuestas desde 1984 en el Centro de Estudios de la Realidad Contemporánea, CERC, donde fue directora desde 1990 hasta 1993. A partir de 1994 forma su propia empresa de estudios de mercado y opinión en sociedad con la multinacional Mori de la Gran Bretaña. En el campo académico es autora del barómetro de CERC que monitorea la transición chilena desde 1987 hasta hoy en día, así como de numerosas publicaciones. Ha anticipado correctamente el resultado de las elecciones presidenciales en Chile desde 1988. Aquí tendrías muy buen negocio, Marta. No hemos sido tan afortunados últimamente. Es miembro del grupo que realiza el Estudio Mundial de Valores de World Values Survey y es parte del comité que organiza el Estudio Mundial de Sistemas Electorales, llamado en inglés Comparative Study of Electoral Systems. Ha realizado consultorías en 23 países sobre el tema de las encuestas y los procesos electorales en transición. Miembro fundadora y coordinadora de Global Barometers, una organización que agrupa los barómetros de Asia y África. En conjunto con Latino Barómetro se tienen indicadores de opinión de más de 64 países del mundo. Miembro del directorio de varias organizaciones chilenas, de FINAM, del Banco Mundial de la Mujer, consultora del PNUD, del Banco Mundial y del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo, miembro del Comité de Expertos de Opinión Pública de Naciones Unidas. Les pido un aplauso para Marta, por favor.
Bueno, muy buenas tardes. Es un honor estar aquí en la organización que por excelencia produce datos objetivos y penetrar con lo subjetivo Como me decía un embajador en la mañana, lo subjetivo es muy peligroso, porque no lo podemos dominar. Bueno, yo les voy a presentar los datos de los barómetros de opinión que han surgido en el mundo a partir del año 95, en América Latina, en África, en el mundo árabe, en Asia del Sur y en Asia del Este. Estos barómetros lo que hacen es medir el monitoreo de las sociedades en sus aspectos políticos, económicos y de relaciones internacionales. Nos vamos a centrar ahora en cuáles son las principales barreras que hay que salvar para conseguir mejor desempeño de las instituciones públicas. ¿Dónde tienen que empezar los reformadores? Dice la pregunta que nos pone la OCDE para esta sesión. Bueno, yo primero empezaría por, a ver si funciona la tecnología, empezaría por el diagnóstico. Miremos el fenómeno no como lo ven las estadísticas oficiales, sino que como lo ve la gente. Introduzcamos a las personas en la ecuación. Como decía Enrique Iglesias hoy día en la mañana, lo subjetivo, ¿no? No, el buen vivir no es lo mismo que vivir mejor. ¿Y qué es lo que tenemos en primer lugar? Si comparamos las distintas regiones del mundo, tenemos un indicador general de la confianza interpersonal, que es la capacidad de cada cual de conectarse con el otro. Se refería a él también el gobernador hoy día en la mañana. Y tenemos una diferencia brutal, ¿no es cierto? En Europa, con la dispersión europea, incluido todos los países de la Nueva Europa, los países aplicantes, tenemos un 44%. Los países del norte de Europa tienen alrededor de un 70, un 80% de confianza interpersonal. Eso quiere decir que yo confío en el tercero desconocido. En América Latina, no necesito decirles, en América Latina nosotros no confiamos del tercero desconocido, solamente el 16% de los latinos confían en el tercero desconocido. Y en África estamos más o menos en el mismo nivel. Ese es un punto de partida para la confianza, porque se cree que el problema de la confianza en instituciones es el problema de las instituciones. Lo que estos datos muestran es que la confianza en las instituciones es el problema de la interacción entre las personas de esa sociedad. Eso es lo que está reflejado en las instituciones. Entonces, si nos vamos, no vamos, ¿no? Ahí. Podemos mirar la evolución de la confianza interpersonal, por ejemplo, en una región del mundo, en América Latina. Y lo que vemos es de que hace 20 años que la confianza interpersonal es baja. Esto no es un fenómeno nuevo. Entonces, dos afirmaciones. En primer lugar, la confianza en las instituciones está basada en la confianza interpersonal. Es un reflejo de la confianza interpersonal. Y segundo, esto no es un fenómeno nuevo. Las culturas traen consigo, ¿no es cierto?, un grado de confianza interpersonal que se mantiene a través del tiempo. Y ojo que la democracia no ha podido cambiar. El proceso de democratización en los países de América Latina no ha podido cambiar. Pero eso no solamente eso, sino que si podemos... No es muy obediente el aparato este. Ir a la siguiente lámina. ¿Hay alguien que tenga el poder del computador que me pase la siguiente lámina? Porque esto no lo pasa. Tengo que apuntar a otro lado. Ahí. Ya está. Ok, perdón. A ver. Entonces tenemos la confianza en instituciones aquí en 60 países del mundo y aquí están todos los países mezclados y las regiones mezcladas. ¿Y qué es lo que podemos ver? No van a ver ustedes los números, los pueden ver después en la presentación cuando se suba. Aquí lo interesante es que cada país tiene un nivel de confianza. Aquí tenemos las Cortes de Justicia, el Congreso y los partidos. Entonces, cada país tiene un nivel de confianza, sin importar el lugar del mundo donde está, ese país tiene un nivel de confianza y ese nivel de confianza se mantiene a través del tiempo, salvo grandes acontecimientos. Entonces, la pregunta de cómo cambiamos los niveles de confianza, estamos hablando del corazón de un cambio cultural al interior de cada una de las naciones, de cada una de las culturas, de cada una de las unidades sociales en que se agrupa el mundo. Tenemos acá los países que tienen más confianza en las instituciones y a continuación vienen los países que tienen menos, ¿no? Vamos a ir entrando en detalle en cada uno de ellos. Entonces tenemos estos niveles por país de desconfianza. Y lo que tenemos más que todo es desconfianza, no confianza. Son muy pocos los países de la Tierra que tienen altos grados de confianza en las instituciones. Entonces uno podría decir que los outliers son los países en los cuales hay confianza, que a lo mejor son 15, 20, 22 países del mundo más desarrollado. Entonces uno puede mirar el fenómeno de una manera distinta. Ahí. ¿No? Ahí. Podemos observar las diferencias regionales a continuación. Y podemos ver los niveles por región. Y también encontramos que hay un nivel por región. Y esos niveles por región dicen relación con la cultura. Entonces no solo está la problemática del país y el nivel del país, está también la problemática de las regiones, ¿no? Podemos ir observando los distintos aspectos, ¿no es cierto?, del patrón y de la caracterización de estos indicadores de confianza. En este caso hemos tomado el caso de los gobiernos, ¿no? Y ustedes pueden ver en el Eurobarómetro, esta es una de las pocas variables en que podemos comparar con el mundo desarrollado, porque nosotros no tenemos datos del mundo desarrollado, sí algunos del Eurobarómetro que aparecen ahí. Ojo que la confianza, por ejemplo, en Francia, la última barra del Eurobarómetro es 20, ¿no? O sea, también hay niveles bajos de confianza en el corazón de Europa. Ahí. Más interesante todavía es ver la diferencia por institución en la confianza por región. Entonces podemos ver otro aspecto que es que en general encontramos que en los partidos políticos, en cualquier región del mundo que se encuentren, tienen menor nivel de confianza. Mientras que el Congreso y las Cortes tienen niveles más altos de confianza en varias regiones, ¿no? Entonces tenemos un patrón de confianza que dice relación con la institución, no solo un patrón con la región, un patrón con el país y otro patrón con la institución de la cual estamos tratando. Entonces, en el diagnóstico que se hace de la confianza es necesario considerar todos estos aspectos para poder llegar a un diagnóstico más certero, ¿no? Comparando estos 90 países, todavía no sé dónde está. Ahora, si miramos a la estructura de la tendencia por región, la noticia no es mejor, ¿no? Podemos mirar a la estructura de confianza de una región, como es esta, en el caso de América Latina, donde tenemos prácticamente todas las instituciones, y podemos constatar, ¿no es cierto?, que el sistema judicial, el Parlamento y los partidos políticos están al final de la lista. Esto sucede sistemáticamente en las 5 regiones que podemos medir. Tenemos un problema global con la confianza en las instituciones de la democracia, que no importa en qué región del mundo nos encontremos, están al final de la lista. Entonces, ya no es un problema regional, es un problema, ¿no es cierto?, de cómo están funcionando las instituciones de la democracia. No sé si ustedes han visto, hace poco salió el informe de Larry Diamond de la Universidad de Stanford, que se llama Democracy in Decline. Bueno, Democracy in Decline tiene que ver con esta universalización del declive de las instituciones de la democracia, que sin importar el nivel, sin importar la magnitud y sin importar el momento del tiempo, están al final de la lista en cualquiera de las regiones que se intente medir. Y acá podemos ver, ¿no es cierto?, la evolución también por región de cada una de estas variables, y podemos ver que hay momentos del tiempo en el cual han habido niveles más altos. Y es interesante en el caso de los gobiernos, si ustedes se fijan la raya hacia arriba, que va del 19 al 43, ese es el periodo, ¿no es cierto?, del boom económico que se vivió América Latina entre el 2003 y la crisis del subprime. hay una relación entre la confianza en instituciones y el desarrollo económico. Es una relación débil, pero hay una relación. Y cuando empieza a bajar a partir del 2010, es el fin del superciclo. Entonces, encontramos en muchas regiones del mundo y países, ¿no es cierto?, una relación directa entre la confianza en instituciones y el crecimiento. Por eso no hay que olvidar el crecimiento y considerar solamente los aspectos subjetivos, porque sin crecimiento pareciera que no hay mucho más, ¿no? Entonces el crecimiento es el piso sobre el cual se puede construir, como vamos a ver después más adelante otros aspectos, un mayor nivel de confianza en las instituciones. Ahí está. Acá vemos en el caso de Asia, entre el año 2002, entre el año 2000 y 2014, tenemos en el caso de Japón, en el caso de Taiwán, en el caso de Filipinas, en el caso de Singapur, ¿no es cierto?, una baja de las instituciones del gobierno nacional, en este caso hemos tomado estos indicadores, a lo largo del tiempo. Entonces, tenemos una deconstrucción de la confianza en instituciones en las últimas 2 décadas. Si uno mira, son muy pocos los casos, y voy a mostrar un caso de un país, ¿cierto?, que logra revertir esta negatividad. Pero si uno mira y compara los 90 países que podemos mostrar, son muy pocos los casos en que se puede mostrar un aumento de la confianza en las instituciones. Y vamos a tratar de mostrar cuáles son los elementos que permiten este revertimiento. Si vamos al tema de la razón por la cual hay baja confianza y corremos análisis multivariados, nos encontramos con que la gente nos señala que, por ejemplo, el tema de la desigualdad en la distribución del ingreso es uno de los temas centrales, que la gente justifica como razón para desconfiar de las instituciones de la democracia, ¿no? Y ustedes ven ahí en 20 años en América Latina se ha aumentado de 11 a 23% la percepción de que hay una justicia en la distribución del ingreso. Es un aumento muy pequeño y un aumento demasiado lento para que exista la satisfacción de la gente. En otras palabras, esta es una de las razones por las cuales la gente está en las calles en América Latina. Vamos demasiado despacio en las mejoras. Todavía no, ahí. Otra de las variables importantes que tenemos, que nos explican las razones por las cuales la gente desconfía, es que hay una distribución inequitativa del poder, de la política, que está concentrada en muy pocas manos. Y aquí el 29% de los latinoamericanos en el año 2015 nos dijeron que el gobierno estaba gobernado para el bien de todos, solamente el 29%, es decir, el 70% de la región de América Latina dice que el gobierno gobierna para los intereses de unos pocos. Es decir, la distribución del poder político es vista como tan desigual como la distribución de la riqueza. 2 razones que llevan a la desconfianza en las instituciones de la democracia. El 70% de la región de América Latina, esto se podría mostrar para cada una de las regiones, ¿no? Pero dado el tiempo estoy centrándome en mi región. El 70% de los latinoamericanos dicen que no se sienten representados por el Congreso. Hay un problema político de representación que dice relación con la inclusión política. Vimos que también hay un tema con la inclusión económica. Bueno, el balance es también el tema de la inclusión política en los países de América Latina. Y ustedes pueden ver ahí la alta dispersión que hay por país. Ahora, el tercer tema viene siendo la transparencia, ¿no? Donde el 60% de la gente dice que no hay transparencia, todo es oscuro. Lo que hacen los gobiernos es oscuro, lo hacen para ellos y no para la gente. Y por lo tanto, ese es otro de los motivos que sale estadísticamente como significativo para aumentar la confianza. Ahí. Finalmente tenemos el tema, me salté, ahí, el tema del progreso en reducir la corrupción. Esta es una de las variables más potentes en explicar el aumento, el cambio positivo aunque sea pequeño, que se ha producido en algunos países, las razones que la gente da para haber aumentado la confianza en instituciones es haber logrado mostrar efectivo avance en la lucha contra la corrupción. La corrupción se vuelve entonces un elemento esencial de la dispersión del poder político y de la dispersión del poder económico. Abarca ambos elementos y por eso es tan potente su impacto. Después tenemos el tema... el tema de la discriminación, ¿ya? 45% de la región de América Latina se siente discriminada. Curiosamente, en África es mucho menor la sensación de discriminación, porque la gente vive mucho más en comunidades cerradas y hay menos interacción. En la medida que aumenta la interacción, aumenta la percepción de discriminación. Es como el otro tolera, veíamos, cuál es la interacción, la capacidad de interactuar con otro, como dice Albert Hirschman, la insoportable otredad de los otros, ¿no? Entonces tenemos la mitad de la región que dice que está altamente discriminada y por supuesto la discriminación racial, que está en el fondo de la discriminación en América Latina, es más de un tercio de la población. Pero quiero terminar con una historia de éxito, porque cuando miramos los patrones que se requieren para cambiar la condición de desconfianza que los ciudadanos tienen respecto de las instituciones de la democracia, llegamos muy rápidamente a la conclusión de que tenemos que cambiar los patrones culturales de interacción entre dos personas al interior de una sociedad. Y para poder cambiar esa confianza, como describió hoy día en la mañana el gobernador de Guadalajara, de Jalisco, hay que volver a la base, hay que volver a generar, ¿no es cierto?, ya sea por la vía de la base o por la vía del liderazgo. Y lo que tenemos es acá una historia de éxito, el caso de Uruguay, que en el año 2004 muestra cómo la baja de las instituciones del gobierno, el Congreso, el Poder Judicial y los partidos, a través de un cambio de gobierno y un fuerte liderazgo presidencial, Uruguay logra cambiar la posición de los ciudadanos uruguayos respecto de las instituciones de la democracia. Es decir, es posible hacerlo. Se puede hacer, ya sea por la base, cambiando las condiciones respecto a la distribución del ingreso, respecto de la distribución del poder político, respecto de la corrupción y respecto de la discriminación, y se puede hacer a través del liderazgo. Entonces, para atacar el tema de la confianza en instituciones, yo creo que lo más importante es tener un buen diagnóstico del ámbito en el cual se está actuando para poder saber cuáles son en ese lugar, en esa nación, en esas instituciones, los motivos que la gente da para ello. Las bases de datos están disponibles y ustedes están invitados a usarlas. Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, Marta. A continuación damos la bienvenida a Lisa
Next,
Grace Versales. Lisa
Versales.
lo voy a decir en inglés porque es interesante.
I am
El
going to
título
do this in English
de
because
su puesto es
the
National
title is very
Statistician
important.
and
It's
Civil
National
Registrar General de
Statistician
la
and
Autoridad
Civil
Filipina de
Registry
Estadística.
General.
En otras palabras, es la
She is an
presidenta del
authority in
Instituto de
Philippines in
Estadística de
statistics.
Filipinas y también
In
es la
other words, she's
presidenta
the
del
president
Instituto
of the
del
Institute of
Registro Civil
Statistics in
de
the
su país.
Philippines, and also
Algo
she's
que es
the
muy raro,
president of the
nosotros
civil
aquí
registry
en
in
el
her
INEGI
country.
sentimos que somos
That's something that
muy
here at
exóticos porque
INEGI
tenemos
we feel
geografía
exotic
y
because
estadística
our
junto
name is
también,
very
junto con los
long and includes geography and statistics together with Brazil. We are the only one organism that is autonomous according to our constitution, but we never saw that both the Civil Registry and the Office of Statistics were together, as it is the case. Before taking that position, she was the president of planning and finances in the system in the University of Philippines, and she's been in charge of the faculty of statistics for several years, and she's been in charge of graduate thesis, and she's been the dean of that area. She was summa cum laude, and she got her master and her PhD in the same institution. Welcome, Lisa. Thank you, Mario. Good afternoon.
OECD, the government of Jalisco, and ENEJI for inviting me to be part of the discussions here in this forum. I will be presenting my paper in English. Thank you, Marta. And I will be talking about measuring good governance and trust in the Philippines. I will talk about how in the Philippines our government is using international indicators, and I would like to also show some initiatives of my office. The National Statistics Office or Institute of the Philippines is referred to as the Philippine Statistics Authority. The government is also very much serious in lessening burden to our citizens when they transact with government. And so there is what we call the Anti-Red Tape Act. And I would like to share with you how our Civil Service Commission measures trust in frontline services of government in line with the Anti-Red Tape Act. I would also like to share with you private sector contribution, very similar to what Marta shared earlier, and academia as partners in the Philippines, and moving forward, putting all of these contributions together through data revolution. So in the Philippines, the government looks at its global, apologies for, global competitiveness index. This is actually reported by the media once these results are out, and the government usually reacts to the result of the Global Competitiveness Index. So in the Philippines, for the years 2013 to 2014, we were ranked 59th out of 148 countries, but we are not yet good with respect to how other countries in Asia, Southeast Asia, are faring. So we usually compare ourselves with our Southeast Asian neighbors. Another internationally generated index, which our media report on and the government also looks into, is the Corruption Perception Index. And I have here only the one up to 2011, but in the website of Transparency International, we already have the result of the Corruption Perception Index for the year 2014, and the Philippines is ranked 85th out of 175 countries. So this is a big jump from 129 out of 180 to 85 out of 175 countries as the rank of the Philippines for the Corruption Perception Index. The National Statistics Office is also tasked to look into good governance indicators, and one initiative of the National Statistical Institute, the Philippine Statistics Authority of the Philippines, is to first work on a framework on good governance, and this is the framework that was arrived at after a workshop among relevant stakeholders in the country, and that is that good governance has actually three components: economic, political, and administrative. And usually, the National Statistical Institute, the PSA, always uses a framework to come up with indicators for it to generate. And I would like to share with you that out of this framework, we are able to track good governance through the following indicators. As you will notice, and this is what I would like to emphasize, the National Statistics Institute of the Philippines works with what we call the traditional, the usual official statistics. So for economic governance index, for example, we would work with financial resources generated, total revenue collections, total deposits in banks, expenditures on social services, unemployment rate, labor participation rate, poverty incidence, poverty gap, and inflation rate. And the data sources, apologies for the acronyms, these are the relevant agencies in government that would be the source of the data. So some of these are from surveys, others are from administrative-based data. But these are all from government agencies. Okay, and so for political governance index, we actually have a survey which is generating crime solution efficiency rate. And from our Commission on Elections, we have the voters turnout rate. Other indices will be from education, which are the usual education indicators that we would actually generate for the Millennium Development Goals. And these are administrative-based data from our Ministry of Education. We also have a health index. These would all come from our Ministry of Health. And these are, again, administrative-based data. Actually, they come from the surveillance information system of our health ministry. We also have some indicator on energy and our indicator for telecommunication. So these are some of the indicators that we identified to generate for governance indicators based on the framework that was developed and which I showed you. I think I pressed something. This is an example of the result of the governance indicator using the specific indicators showed earlier, and these are down to the subnational level. So this is the map of the Philippines, and in the Philippines, the administrative regions are first national, then regional, then provincial. So this is the provincial map of governance, good governance index from 2008 versus 2011. And we note that there was some improvement in governance based on this index. The red areas are the ones which are still having difficulties in terms of good governance, and the green one would be the ones that are performing much better than the others. So there are less red areas in 2011 compared to 2008 using the indicators that I mentioned earlier as generated from government data. As I mentioned to you earlier that our government has what is called the Anti-Red Tape Act, and all government agencies with frontline services are randomly surveyed by our commission, the Civil Service Commission, through what it calls the report card survey. So 1,023 government offices were visited by surveyors of the Civil Service Commission, and these are not scheduled. So this is like an audit survey. We never know when they will visit the office. And as reported, 984 of the 1,023 government offices passed the anti-red tape check. What this really means is that the report card of these frontline services passed the scoring system of the Civil Service Commission. So this is 96% of government offices surveyed passed the scorecard. And 39 offices, or 4%, earned a failing grade. If you are one of these that earned a failing grade, then you will be contacted by the Civil Service Commission, and you will have like a seminar to discuss what happened to you. I would like to report to you that, as mentioned earlier by Mario, the Philippine Statistics Authority is also the one in charge of civil registration in the Philippines, and therefore we have a frontline service. And the frontline service we have is to provide civil registry documents like birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, and we even have what we call a certificate of no marriage, which usually those who want to get married would request just to make sure that the potential bride or groom doesn't have any record of marriage. And so we have such a service as well. And it's only the birth certificate which is confidential. The other certificates can be requested by other persons other than the person concerned. And we actually have a concern because one of our frontline offices, which is in the central office actually, earned a low grade. So we had to go through some sessions with our Civil Service Commission because of this. The way they do this report card is that they go to the frontline office where usually there is a queue of citizens seeking service, and they do a random sample and they ask the citizens to give a grade to the office. So they have a rating scale, which is a Likert type scale with codes for excellent down to failure. So that is the role of the Civil Service Commission. And we believe that the scorecard system that they give to frontline services is a measure of trust to the institution. But in the Philippines, we have a very vibrant and active private sector. And our private sector, among them, are the ones doing polls. And we have two very active pollsters in the Philippines. One of them is Pulse Asia. And these pollsters, they actually, from their own funds, do surveys regularly on various trust areas. And I would just like to share with you the awareness and trust ratings of our top national officials as of September 2015 from Pulse Asia. And what they did was they asked the level of trust of the citizens who know the personalities. So this is our president, this is our vice president, this is our Senate president, the speaker of our lower house, and the Supreme Court Chief Justice. As you will see, 100% of our citizens know the president and the vice president, but not all of them know the other important officials in government. And our president has received a 49% big trust result. The instrument that Pulse Asia uses just asks certain questions. And the question that they would ask would be, what trust do you have on our president? So it's I'm not quoting it verbatim, so this is similar to what they ask. And so the citizens are asked to choose from the 3 possible answers after they are asked if they know the particular official. So this pollster produces this trust rating quarterly. This particular pollster also tracked the performance rating and the trust rating of the past 3 presidents. And I'm showing to you the trend of the trust of our citizens on our past 3, the current president and the past 3. And we always note that as the president stays in office, the trust rating and the performance rating usually goes down. But we noted that the current president has a higher level compared to the previous ones in terms of performance and trust. Another pollster that produces this kind of information is the social weather stations. And they actually produce what they call net satisfaction ratings. They also ask the question, do you trust? They also ask like a Likert type, so they have an ordinal classification of answers to their question, whether the person trusts the president. And they come up with what they call a net rating, which is the percent satisfied minus percent dissatisfied. So these are like if there is a 5-point scale to satisfaction, they just get the difference of the lowest score to the highest one in terms of percentage. And we noted again that usually the satisfaction rating goes down, but this one is presented according to the 3 or 4 geographic areas in the Philippines. So the Philippines has 3 major geographic island groupings. The big one is Luzon, the middle grouping is Visayas, and the third one is Mindanao. But they usually take out from the Luzon the National Capital Region rating. So as noted, usually it's the middle island grouping people that usually rates high to our officials. And here followed by Luzon, and this is Mindanao. And usually the tough people to please are in our urban area, the capital urban area. This other presentation of results, the next one, is the net satisfaction rating by economic classification. And so we have the socioeconomic classification of classes A, B, C, D, E, with the poorest classified as E and the richest classified as A. It is interesting to note that the poorest gave a higher satisfaction rating to the president, followed by the upper classes, and the D is the one that gave the lowest mark. So this is something interesting for our sociologists to look at. I would now like to share how our academe helps the Philippine statistical system in terms of our measurement of governance and trust. Apologies, okay. This is an article that I would like to share with you, written by one of our professors in the university in the Center for Public Administration. He is actually now a commissioner on our Commission on Higher Education, and this is a lawyer practitioner for public governance. And they wrote this paper, and I would like to share a quote here because this is a very important recognition in the Philippines by academia of the importance of measurement. Effective leaders are able to mobilize collaboration between the national and local public sector, the private sector, and civil society to deliver goods and services to the public. Accountability, transparency, participation, and predictability through rule of law are translated into experience as processes, tools, and instruments. Experience becomes scorecards and benchmarks for political, social, administrative, economic, and cultural dimensions of governance. The framework that the National Statistical Institute of the Philippines usually produces for our official statistics are generated or created with the help of academia. And moving forward, I have shared with you that in the Philippines, many sectors, many stakeholders come up with instruments to measure indicators such as governance, trust, satisfaction, and they are from various sectors. So we have the private sector that generates such, and we have different government institutions that develop these data and indicators through administrative-based data and surveys. And we have academia that help us with the frameworking. And so what is next steps in the Philippines? With the demands for more granular data, for more disaggregated data, the official statisticians need the help of these different sectors that actually already generate data that can be used to measure governance. And all we need to do is put our act together. So we are currently, with the help of Paris 21, in a discussions. We have a project, a pilot project, introducing data revolution in the Philippines, and we shall continue to do this, come up with a good partnership so that we can determine who will measure what, who will generate what, but in a harmonized and standardized manner. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Damos la
We welcome our next speaker, who is Juan Bardenas. He's an outstanding economist. He's the director of the Mexican Institute of Competitiveness. He has a presence in TV, radio, and also in journals. He was an investigator in the Investigation Center for the Development, and he also has been a professor in the University of Mexico in the ITAM and the London School of Economics. He worked in the CNN as a correspondent. Right now he works in opinion public programs called Tu y tu voto, You and Your Vote, Build Democracy, Taxes, a Necessary Thing. He also wrote another articles and has a column in the journal Reforma. He has a PhD in economics. He has a master from the University in Tokyo and a political science in the National Autonomous University of Mexico. Thank you very much. I will stay here, and I offer an apology because maybe my references will be more local regarding to the Mexican context and also to the Latin American context. After seeing the presentation of Marta and the presentation of Grace, well, the first impression that I have is any president of Latin America would like to have for a Sunday all the popularity that has the president of Philippines. We have a challenge by looking at these numbers presented by Marta, and we can feel the thing that in our society is very different. How can we give sustainability to the institutions, to democracy, to finance policies, and general public policies that require a very large aspect to apply them in a very low context of low trust. This is the challenge of governability in an ambience of non-trust And this is the challenge which is presented. Given the numbers of Marta, it's a worldwide challenge. And almost it's like a necessity. We need a political strategy. I don't know if a public policy. We have to build trust. How do you manage to regain some level of perception of integrity on institutions that need to be changed and that need to be supported by society in order to work right? And here I have the idea of a different group of excellence islands. Once I've heard a story of a director of an orchestra, Mexican, and he was very strict in all details before he commenced his concerts. Since all the musicians, dress codes and elegance before performing into the public, that all the instruments were perfectly in order. And he put a special effort that the concert should have started in the Sala de Bellas Artes in Mexico City at 12 p.m. on time. One time someone approached him and told him, everything is ready, maybe we could wait for more 15 minutes to commence with the concert because the president wants to come to see the concert and he can make it on time. In that moment, the director told that he quit before changing his principles and before being flexible, before being to the president. So in which way we can take these examples of leadership? I will call it that they don't let them change his principles in order to rebuild trust in our institutions. In Mexican context, I was thinking, which are the institutions or the characteristics that one person looks in order to trust in them? Or which one are the ones who have a high level of trust? I can say it, and because I don't say it only because Mario is here and because I represent a good institute, or because I think my institution where I work is very important, like INEGI. But INEGI is an institution that has managed to be protected from this level of untrust. What makes these institutions, Bank of Mexico, be what they are in the context of public debate? If we look at the level of credibility from one institution like Bank of Mexico, like the Congress, to the Congress, well, this is like the Latin American presidents. I think our congressmen will also like to have the level of credibility as the people who work in the Bank of Mexico. The first thing that comes to my mind is leadership. The figure of leadership is very, very important. It's something that cannot be a public policy. It's someone that is selected in each profile, in each person's profile. Which are the elements of integrity that belongs to a person and that person that is in charge of a certain institution? Whether if it's alone or if it's with other persons, what are the skills that lead them to be a person like that? If one see the biography of the governor of the Bank of Mexico, or the people who work in the INEGI, I'm not asking for a job and I would not ask for a job in the INEGI, but I like very much my job. But you can see how they have worked. You can see why they work there, how they reached to get to there. And besides, there's an ethical behavior when the head of a structure, a government structure, for example, they don't recognize a case of conflict of interest. Well, it's very easy that that kind of behavior start spreading with everyone in the institution. And then the first thing to rebuild trust are the profiles, leadership profiles. Who are the people in charge of those institutions and how did they get there? Second thing that I think is very important is functionality. Institutions that don't have many things to do, that they do just particular things, generally speaking, they have better trust levels. In INEGI, maybe it's a bad example because they do so many things, but they are very similar. Their functions are very similar, from violence to economic service, but regularly they're very related. Service, statistics, Bank of Mexico only does one thing. They control prices in the Mexican economy. Therefore, once you have a specific function and your work solidity and your work, it's much more easier to measure, easier to accomplish and to fulfill that goal, and it's much more clearer. I will compare it, and I apologize again to the international public. For example, the Electoral Institute of Mexico, the ones in charge of this institution, they need to watch the process of election, count the votes, and even count the number of minutes of publicity in each party in Mexico, whether it's radio, television. Therefore, they have different areas to do many different things. One counts votes, one counts publicity, one do also just auditory. And imagine all those processes, all the expenses, campaign expenses of all elections in the country. Now in the last reform regarding elections in Mexico, they won't have as many functions, but in some year of elections, it can happen that this institution may have to follow up also financial stuff about the candidates. Therefore, there's a dispersion in all those functions, and it's much more harder to build trust in it because they have to do so many things. Another thing that I see as an element that gather institutions that came like INEGI and Bank of Mexico again, they have a civil service of career. It's not as formal, but there's an in-house process between it, which is called like meritocracy, which is to explain why the people that are in charge of the high levels of taking decisions, why are they there? Merit is very important. Merit gives you confidence. Unfortunately, many of our institutions, they are not recognized by trust or merit. If we look at all the charts and numbers presented by Marta, we're trying to find a common thing between all the countries and between different realities. I think there is one element that reminds me, two things I have read from Parisecare and Moiseim, that Latin America managed to go from democracy before building solid institutions based on law. This phrase and this diagnosis is very relative and it changed in many contexts. But we must focus in democracy institutions, and we left aside and we didn't pay attention to build institutions that are in charge to guarantee law. Yesterday, I heard Maria Amparo Casar, a colleague from where I work, that said that from 10 news, 10 different journals, there were not a single day where there weren't a news about corruption. I mean, all the readers of the Mexican journals around a decade, they didn't have one stop of 24 hours without a new news about corruption. These elements are due to not only to corruption, but we have information about that. Thanks to democracy, we have a free press, enough pluralism in politics, one party that criticizes another one. Then in this context of plurality, of press freedom, we have this with this fight, constant fight against journal each day about corruption. That is the advance of the transition to democracy. What's the problem about institutions based on law? That all these cases are showed up in the front page of papers. They are not very important, but still they show it. Where there is no sanction, they won't give results. The lack of information, it doesn't mean that they're doing their work right. We have different contexts in the different countries of Latin America where democracy, freedom of press, but they don't respond easily. This is what I think that
Is what we need to measure in the numbers that we get from the public opinion. There is a skepticism, and when there is already skepticism, it is going to lead to a poisoning and the lack of belief in those institutions because we have a lack of information. However, we have these flagrant cases right in front of us. However, there is no reaction to those cases. We don't see reactions from these institutions, from the government, something that guarantees a sanction to those actions. And associated to those topics of leadership and functionality and civil services, we need a government that is reactive to these facts. We need to create a feeling that these cases were closed, that there were results, there were sanctions, penal sanctions, and that there were political results and sanctions. I believe that that would be the right way to go. Not probably in order to rebuild trust, because that may be a little bit too ambitious. In countries where we have this state of governance and those countries that are further advanced in this area, there is still a skepticism in the government. But I think it would act as a vaccine, and it would prevent the further deterioration of this trust in these institutions. And the antidote, in a way, it is going to allow for certain level of recovery. And in doing so, basic policies like tax return or institutions for democracy, policies against poverty and inequality, all of these policies require several decades before they can see results. But what we want to make is to make them sustainable so that there is higher participation, higher activism from the people, from the citizens, and in doing that we can stop these epidemics that we have of skepticism. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Juan. We are now going to open the microphone for questions. We have some ladies on the floor who have the microphones. If you have a question, just raise your hand and identify yourself and the question, please. Over here and over there as well. We would take questions in groups of 3 questions. There was one person over there and over there as well. Who has the microphone closer to them now? Please. Hi, my name is Gloria de la Luz. I come from the Metropolitan University Azcapotzalco. My question is for Grace. I have the curiosity of knowing how is it that you came about this civil commission. of services. Who is it that created it? And aside from monitoring government agencies, do they have any capacity to sanction this institution? We are going to take 3 questions in total before we answer. Please, a microphone over there. Do we have any other questions? Please.
Two questions, I hope that's okay. So my name is Sema Abdallah, I'm from the New Economics Foundation in the UK. My first question, I work on well-being, and a lot of people talk about the problems of well-being being that it's hard to measure. I wonder, but when you look at measures of governance and the different aspects of governance, there's also a lot of different kinds of measures used and a lot of different concepts that are included: transparency, accountability, well, sort of broader concepts of governance, trust. I'm just wondering, is that plurality of measurement and a lack of sort of clear definition a problem? And is it something that we can sort of move forwards on? And then the second one is, it was really sort of sparked by some of the data on the lack of trust in government, and also some of the comments made this morning about how we need to sort of, we need to regain that trust in government if we're going to achieve all the aims that we have. And I'm struck by, it was mentioned by the last speaker about the the role that the media play in terms of presenting, talking about corruption every day. One of the other things that we're always told about is how government get in the way of society, get in the way of businesses from doing things, getting in the way of people from living their lives. How do we counteract that narrative of government as being something that's in the way and see government as something which is something positive and in the end is actually us?
Okay, thank you. There is another question. Hay otra pregunta de este lado, por favor. Aquí.
Thank you. There is another question on this side. Enrique, go ahead. Enrique Cárdenas, I come from the Center Sur Espinosa Iglesias from Mexico. This is for Martha. Martha, you said a while ago, you started saying that there was very little trust, interpersonal trust, and that was also related to the lack of trust between institutions. Then I would like to ask you, what's the cause of this? Where is it born? From people towards institutions or from institutions towards people? Go ahead, one more question over there, and we will start the answers after that. Thank you very much. There was one phrase that you mentioned, the last speaker mentioned, that that's why I would like to ask. You said that now we are dealing with governance in the context of a lack of trust. If we added the OECD agenda, it is an agenda that has reforms in the terms of the lack of trust. And if I look at Chile, I see policies that we deal with the growing aspect of trust. However, I would like to talk about politics, the politician promises that they do and how they do not comply with their promises. They promise that we are going to reach better levels of live ratings, and we see ratings that people are comparing themselves up and down, and they feel panic because they are not improving. Therefore, how can we bind this that we have just heard with politics? And in order to create new regulations, we know that there was a country in Europe that was without government for 2 years, and it worked. And in Latin America, it doesn't work. Why? Very well, we are now going to start answering these 4 questions. Even though they were individual, you can answer any question that you want. I would like to start with Martha because Martha is taking an international flight in a few minutes, so please start, Martha. Thank you very much. Very interesting, your question about causality. And there is one great book that is called Public Opinion, and it describes a number of people living in an island. And people do not know the information that is coming from the continent. They only get this information once a month. And sometimes the ship that comes every month is late, or it takes them 2 months to get there. And as it turns out, people living in this island were either French or German, and they had been partying together the day prior, but they were now in war when the ship came. That created a series of reactions in these people living in the island. It is the interpersonal relationship that causes that's what the book says. It was written in the year 22 by Walter Bookman. It is the interpersonal relationship that is going to have an impact on institutions. It is the news that we just heard from the previous lecturer. It is news that produce this public opinion. And this public opinion is created on these politic institutions. In the absence of information, there is no public opinion. Therefore, it is a dilemma. And nowadays, many people think the media are to blame for the negative outlook that people have on politics. There is no empirical evidence that can prove that. And this example of the island does give us some kind of sense. We cannot establish that sense right now. There is no evidence as such, statistical evidence that can prove that. However, there is that subjective psychological feeling that it is the interaction between people. It is societies that create an environment. It is the people, the interaction between people that create that. And the next comment, I didn't understand very well that question from that gentleman over there. I had trouble with the English. However, I believe that there is a dichotomy between governance and politics. Because if it is required to do a reform, then we need to break what was there prior. And just as the president of INEGI mentioned, and I believe it was the most powerful thing said, is that there is a fear from the institutions. They have a fear to produce, the fear to break previous patterns. It is difficult, but that's something that we need to face. I believe that the society is afraid of change, and the reforms that are required go against governance. And what we see in Latin America, what we have nowadays is a situation where we have a big need for reforms, and the cost of those reforms is governance. So be very careful when you want to maximize governance. If we want to maximize politics, and if we want to maximize trust, and if we want to maximize democracy, then we are going to have to sacrifice on governance. I believe that there is a trade-off there between both, and just the report that was done by Larry Dimus on democracy points towards that decline, that downtrend of democracy, because democracy hasn't brought what was expected of it. I believe that the existence of this mistrust, or the persistence of this mistrust, because it was believed that it was democracy that was going to end discrimination, it was going to end inequality and the lack of trust, but none of that happened. Therefore, clearly, it is not fulfilling its role, and the reforms that are required go against governance, and they require politics, and it was mentioned by Ambassador Serrano. I believe that those are the ones that produce disorders in society. Therefore, if we are not willing to face disorders, then we won't be willing to solve our problems. Very good point. Thank you very much. Lisa, would you like to say something? Muchas gracias.
Existence of a civil service commission is what I would like to answer first. The Civil Service Commission is a government institution. It's an autonomous institution, autonomous from executive, judiciary, and legislative branches of government in the Philippines, created by law, is tasked actually to ensure that services of civil servants in the Philippines has proper standards. So this Civil Service Commission is the one that gives the law on qualifications of people who are hired by government. That's the main task. But also, it ensures that government services are properly provided to the citizens. So thus, they created this scorecard for frontline services. They don't have any sanction. If you get a failing score in the scorecard, there's no sanction. However, as I showed you, there was our media reports the result of the scorecard. And what I showed in the slide is a newspaper article listing who of the different frontline service offices failed or had low rating. So the sanction is really the perception of people on the government institution. And if you are one of the failing institutions, you wouldn't like that. So you have to do your best to get out of that low score. As regards the plurality in the indicators of governance, this is the reason why for official statistics we had to come up with a framework. So the framework for the governance indicator includes clear definitions. So we have the conceptual framework, the conceptual definitions, as well as the operational definitions for our indicators. And as I've mentioned earlier, the framework is created with the help of academia, especially the conceptual frameworks. So definitions of trust and governance, they are not clearly so easily measured. So we need the help of experts. I believe that this is good because governance and trust are multidimensional. So you have the subjective ways of getting trust, but you also have the more objective ones that the official statistics and other government agencies generate. I would like to share that in the Philippines, the media are really very active, and they are very, they really look at current work of government. And so every time they release a negative report, the concerned government agency would answer the reason for such negative reports. But we also have in our government institutions now what we call open data, which we believe will help us disseminate more information, and this would require packaging of information so the media would understand well what the statistics are all about. So we have this forum of advocacy for our media so that they understand more the measures that are being generated. So for those two pollsters, they actually have different definitions of trust. They ask the question differently. And so what is good about their reports is that they include in their releases the question that they used to measure trust so that we understand that they use different questions. Thank you very much.
Me gustaría hacer un ejercicio.
I would like to do an exercise and raise your hand, please. Who in this room knows or uses the application Yelp? Y-E-L-L-P. Who uses that app? So millennials over there. Well, what this application did is that they created, well, it was not the application per se, it was a whole context, but the app is the best reference. It created the economy of reputation. The app basically localizes the restaurants or the businesses, any type of business that is closer to the site where your phone is. And regarding the user rating to that corner coffee shop or the sandwich shop, then that app is going to tell you the different ratings for those different options in the market. And the success of these businesses is directly dependent of that score that is generated by that app and by those grades generated by the customers. Yelp put on the table the topic of economics of reputation. I believe that what has happened with Volkswagen is something that is going to turn it into a reference point for global economies. We have one professor from a university in the United States with a group of students that literally put this company to its knees. This is the seventh, eighth most important company in the world. It was a synonym for German power. It was a synonym for German engineering, and it was transformed only by a group of students and one professor by a very absurd act, given the costs at stake. And Credit Suisse considers that the total implications for these costs, for this fraud, for these emissions, for Volkswagen, the cost can be as high as $80 billion. That's the gross revenue product of some Latin American countries that lost. Just fixing those cars, the cost is going to be very high, but the solution for Volkswagen is probably going to be to pay back those cars at the original price. And maybe a series of liabilities, a series of extra costs because of damage to their reputation. And that's probably the case of the reputation damage that has been the most expensive in our economy. And we will see the implications for the future of that action, the future of that company. And maybe right now it's very attractive for several companies that are swimming in a pool of money. Maybe they're doing software. Maybe they will be interested in having a piece of hardware that is at 40% value of what it used to have a month ago. And all of this has to do with reputation, credibility, trust. And when are we going to see the first Yelp? Probably we already have one Yelp on the quality of the government, on the political leadership. We already have in some countries in the world information on how many gaps we have on the street, how damaged the streets are, and that information goes to public servants, civil servants, and that information is close to being available. And the economy of reputation is going to take many of our societies to the policies, the politics of reputation, and how to do these public policies in the context of the lack of trust. I believe that there is a collision there that is very complicated between the dynamics and the incentives of democracy, because you want them to vote for you, because you have the best solution. However, if your solution looks very much like the two options that your citizens have, well, then it's going to come down to who's going to volunteer for what and solidarity. But the solutions for public policies at the end of the day are not simple. They are complex. And going from the input to the output to the raw materials to the results, the distance is great. And in most cases, the governments and the people in charge of public policies, because of the very cycles of politics, they have had a very hard time assuming and accepting that the strategic planning that happens in the government, the distance between the planning process and the results, in most cases is a huge distance. However, we need to sell that and communicate that to the citizens as a gap that is not as broad. And the strategy here is that that when attempting that goal, the gap is not as big. But I believe that the citizenship is going to realize more and more that that gap is bigger than expected. And I believe that the way I see it, the better we adapt to the reality, the bigger or the more we get a little modesty, the more we change this historical outlook, the more we change the patterns of savings, the more we change the poverty patterns of a society, the better the results. And the policies are constructed in very simple grounds. And I believe that this is going to be more evident in the future. And it is going to affect, because we are going to have higher expectations and we are going to have also higher frustration rate. We need to affect that trust of those institutions, because we need to regain the trust and we need to destroy it before we regain it. Okay, we have time for one more question. Over there, if you can pass on the microphone. Okay, it's already 4, but we were already late when we started, so we are going to go over a little bit. Thank you very much. My name is Francisca Estrada. I work with children, an association that works with children in rural areas. It is an organization that works towards education. It knows that it is through education that we provide those tools to young people. That's how we are going to improve. It is how we are going to gain a greater GDP. That's how we're going to increase productivity. And I have had the opportunity of looking at the programs from Juan Pardinas, and I love your programs because of your logic, because of how you deal with these topics. And this time around, we are talking about changes in the way of life. And the organizations of the civil society, we are working constantly in order to improve those deficiencies that we see in programs that never reach those who are vulnerable. We have a very important support from Nacional Monte de Piedad, a pawn shop here, and that's not enough. And we realize that we require a strategic planning at the national level, and something that is also focused at the state level, and truly with a commitment and with passion, because if something is characteristic of these institutions is the passion for what they're doing. My question for Juan Pardinas specifically is, how do you think, Juan, that we can articulate each other between all these different sectors in order to manage to add on to this and achieve those bigger goals, something that can improve that GDP? Thank you very much for your very generous comment. What I believe is that civil society is going to be of the utmost importance in this process of reconstruction of public policies. And just supposing that public policies are a natural and exceptional area of authorities and government, that is going to lead to the least optimal results or not optimal results. I believe that the role of the civil society in terms of diagnosis, or just like what I do, or just providing services as what you do, I believe that that is going to yield better results and a bigger impact than just leaving the government on its own. Therefore, as part of this modesty, as part of this creation of public policies, we need to recognize that the social sector and the private sector can bring help in the solution of these big problems that affect our society. I would like to apologize to the floor because I need to go to a reunion and I had to be there several minutes ago. Well, we are now going to close this meeting. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Martha, Lisa, Juan. And now we are going to go to Juan's phrases, elegant intransigency. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. It was very good. I didn't have to ask the questions. I had prepared.